We will ungroup and attach. That's okay. I'm not the caps police, as long as it's, you know, you don't. It's just people when they write everything in caps in a message, it's not good. Let's end our isolation and copy our UVs again. So utilities tab, channel info, and copy and paste. You'll know if you can't copy and paste the UVs between the model that there's some difference between them. So like I said, that one at the back, which is bigger, we're not going to be able to do that with. We're going to have to texture that one up separately. Well, that's okay because it's a different size, so it'll look better textured uniquely anyway. So yeah, Max will remind you if you can't paste it in, if paste is grayed out, then that means there's some difference in the geometry. So okay, so that was 2. Let's go back to number 1, I think. And then we'll go 3 and 4. So isolate our selection, ungroup our model, and attach. And isolate. Back to our utilities and channel info and copy our UVs across. Okay, so 1, 2, we'll go 3. And then 4. And attach our pieces together. I must remember to go back and rename them too, because it's important just for housekeeping that we name them things that we can recognize when we're looking through our list here. So I must remember to do that. I'll do that once I've finished copying these textures around. Okay, so that was 3. The next one's going to be 4, but we've got to copy our UVs across. And again, I'm just making sure it is a different texture. It is, so that's all right. Okay, so we've started with 1, gone all the way through to 4. Let's go back to 1 again, I think. Ungroup. We'll attach. And again, I isolate the selections because when I do my attach, I don't want to grab another piece of geometry by mistake. Just helps you concentrate on the bit that you're working on. Okay, let's copy our UVs across from the channel info. And we were going to go back to texture 1 here, so now this is that one I was talking about. We're going to have to we'll need to attach this and texture this one uniquely inside of Mari because it's you're not going to be able to copy the UVs across because it's different geometry. There's a different number of columns. You can only copy it across when the geometry is exactly the same. So let's skip that and we'll move across to this one. Ungroup and attach. And end isolation. copy our UVs again from our channel info. And let's go with number 2, I think we're on. And I know which one I was using because it's highlighted in max with an outline of white. That's just a visual reminder of to me which was the last texture I assigned. So it's just a good visual reminder, something to keep in mind. See, when I select this one gets highlighted. Let's assign the material to that. Isolate, ungroup, and then modify and attach. That one, that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. Okay, end isolation. Copy and no, I selected 2 there. You don't want to do that. Why am I selecting 2 here? Just let me, I think I forgot to turn off attach when I was doing the second lot, so I'm going to quickly select those, make sure that they're all selected. Yep. I'm going to detach them. Alright. That's just me not paying attention to what I'm doing. So let's end isolation there. Alright. Let's go back here and copy our UVs again. Paste them. Alright. That's better. Just checking to make sure that we have unique texture here, and I think we do. Or do we? Yeah, we do. Unique enough not to be noticed. Okay, let's pay attention to what I'm doing now and deselect, select, isolate, ungroup, and let's attach. Turn attach off and exit isolation mode. Okay, now let's copy our UVs across. And let's assign texture number 3. Okay, this one here. We'll attach these together. Turn off attach. Again, that's what I think I forgot to disable attach when I exited isolation mode last time, and it attached it to this last set. Alright, let's select those and copy our UVs across. And assign texture number 4 to this one. 3 was the last one. Alright, we're nearly back around to the front again, so we're going to go back to texture number 1. We will ungroup them. We will attach them. Okay. We'll end isolation. Again, we're going to copy our UVs across. And we're going to go back to texture number 1. Isolate, ungroup, and attach. All right. We will end isolation. Oh, I moved them slightly then, so we don't want to do that. We will copy our UVs across. And we were on number 1, so we're going to go to number 2. One more to go here. Okay, let's attach these together. You'll notice my list here shrinking because I'm attaching them all together now as one object. Okay, attach is turned off. Let's exit isolation mode. Select those, go into our Utilities tab, Channel Info, and copy our UVs. And we're on number 2, so let's move to number 3. All right. Now we've textured them up except for these 2 circular parts here in the middle, so let's work on that now. Let's throw it around this way, I think. Select those. So again, even though these are curved, they're still the same number of columns, so we should be able to copy and paste the UVs between them. Let's ungroup them and attach them. Exit isolation. Again, back to our utilities, channel info, and we're going to copy our UVs from there to here. Again, it's letting me do it, so it should be fine. Again, because it's the same number of columns, just because they're curved doesn't make a difference in space, in XYZ space. They're still the same number, that's what's important. Okay, that's using texture number 1, so let's use texture number 4 here. Again, that's because texture number 4 is all the way around here. You're not going to see them together. Let's just save our file quickly to make sure we're not going to lose our work. No problems, Galen. We've just finished texturing up the columns around the outside. We have that one large section at the back to finish, but we're going to have to do that uniquely, so we're going to have to export that and bring it into Mari. We're just working on the curved sections around the front now. I'm just doing a save to be on the safe side in case Max crashes. So I've textured up all of the outside here, all of those small columns, with enough texture variation that you're not going to notice that we're repeating a texture. We're going to have to do this piece uniquely, so we're going to have to export that into Mari and paint that up separately. But again, like I said, because it's a large section, making it completely unique is probably a good idea anyway. So now that we've got all of those done, we've just got to do these curved sections through the middle. And again, we can copy and paste the UVs because it's the same number of columns. Just because they're different in XYZ space, it's being curved as opposed to straight. Won't make a difference, it's just the number of columns that makes a difference. Okay, so let's select those. And I've actually grouped these as one piece, so I'm going to have to ungroup that a few times. I'm going to isolate it. I'm going to ungroup it. I'm going to select the columns before I attach them because I don't want to accidentally attach a piece of geometry, and I'm going to isolate again and then attach them. Okay, now we can exit isolation mode. We'll go back to our Utilities tab and copy our UVs across. And we'll jump into our material editor. We use number 4. Let's use number 3, I think, here. All right. Okay, let's work on this side here. I'm just trying to work out what texture numbers to use here. That's number 1, that's number 2. So I think if we use number 2 there, and that's 3 and 4. These are partially hidden behind the angel, so if I use number 1 there and use number 2 here, I think. Yeah, you're unlikely to see this texture and this one in the same rendered frame because of the angel or the angle. So we'll go number 1 and number 2. Let's zoom in a bit here. Select our columns and isolate them and ungroup them. And attach them. I'm just going to select those columns there and go into our channel info and copy the UVs and paste them in there. And again, we're going to use texture number 1 for that one. We'll ungroup them. We will attach them. We're going to copy our UVs across again. And we're going to use texture number 2 for that one. Okay. So now everything is textured up except for that one large piece that's at the back here. But apart from that, all of the small columns are textured up. So what I want to do though is I want to rename these pieces so that I'm keeping I know what's going on here in my object list. So I think I'll start I'll call them all small columns and just number them around from as we work around the outside of the model. Except for these 4 in the middle, I might call them small columns curved. So small columns curved. We'll call this one right. Actually, far too big. We're just going to go SML COLUM CUR for curved, R for right, and 1. Copy that name. I'll select this one. I'm going to paste the name. We'll just call this one number 2. I'll select this one. Instead of R for right, we'll make this one L for left. And this one can be number 2. Okay, and this one we're going to call, we'll just start numbering them around. So we're going to go small column 1. You may think to yourself, well, why do this? It really does help. If you've ever got to come back and select an individual piece of the geometry or find it, instead of doing it this way, if you need to do it through the object list, it's just good housekeeping to make sure you name them so that you know which one's which. Because a lot of the times when I go to export this model, I'm going to start attaching everything together. So I'll save a version here that has everything separated, and then I'll save a version that has everything attached, and it's the attached version that I will then export and bring into Eon View so we can work with the model as one object. You don't have to. View will keep the object grouped, but because I sell a lot of my work, it's easier on the person that's buying it if they don't have to work with a group. If they're working just with one object, it's better for them to move it around within a scene, easier for them to move it around within a scene. That way they don't accidentally select an object in the group and move it out of place. It'll be then difficult for them to get it back into place inside of View, because View is not a proper, well, it's not a 3D creation program, it's just a rendering sort of software, so it doesn't have robust 3D tools to move things around in. It does have a move tool and a scale and all of that, but you can't get the control that you can get in Max. So to make it easier on people, grouping the object is the best way to, attaching the object as one object is the best way to go. And that's why I always make sure I save a version that is ungrouped and then a version that's all attached. That way I can always come back to the unattached version to make any changes more easily than detaching, as I was saying. So that's number 2. This one's going to be number 3. Okay. And this one's going to be number 4. Now, I actually, when I do, as you see me rotating it here, I always move down here and use the rotate tool. That's just for you guys to see what's going on. I actually have a hotkey set up on my mouse so that I can just click a button to rotate around. But for anyone that's watching and wants to maybe learn Max, that's not going to show you what I'm doing. If I'm hitting a button on my mouse, you're not going to know what's going on. So I always like to make sure where I can, choose the actual button in Max so that you guys can see what I'm doing. But generally when I'm working, I won't do it this way. I'll just use my own hotkeyed mouse button. So that's 4. And it's easy enough to set up. You just go into your customize menu and customize your user interface and layout to set up a hotkey. Okay, so this one was 4, this one's going to be 5. This one's going to be 6. And 7. And 8. Nine. Yeah, yeah. Well, that is cool that Blender can show them on screen. I can use a third-party piece of software to do it, but I don't want to have graphics getting in the way of my working while you guys are seeing what I'm doing. I find it just visually to show people how to use the software. I'm happy just to click a button as opposed to using a shortcut. But if you're working on your own and you're not having to, explain things to people, then shortcuts are great. And setting up macros and things for mouse buttons on your is a great way to go, or even just macros on your keyboard. It was 9. This one's going to be 10. But there is software I could install to it'll bring up a little graphic and show you which buttons I'm clicking at which time and which key presses I'm using. But I find it's just as easy for me to explain if I'm hitting the Alt key or if I'm holding down the left mouse button. But that's just personally. When I've watched people doing tutorials in the past, I always like them to tell me what button they're pressing as opposed to just using a piece of software on screen to show me. It just sinks into my brain a little bit more easily if they're talking me through what they're doing as opposed to me having to concentrate on what they're doing on the screen. Okay, so that was number 10. We'll go to number 11. We're going to skip that one for the moment. We'll come back and rename that in just a sec. Let's go to number 12. Number 13. And number 14. $15. 16. 17. 18. Almost back around again. 19 and 20. 21 and 22. Yeah, well, it's pretty bad if you're watching a tutorial and they forget to either have something on the screen to tell you what buttons they're pressing, or they don't tell you what buttons they're pressing. I did do it that way. You always make sure to use the array tool is really helpful. Yeah, with the array tool, particularly with things like these columns where they all have to be evenly spaced between each other, the array tool is a godsend. So I did definitely use the array tool and along a curve in Max, yeah. Now, sometimes though with a model, this one I probably won't do it, but with a lot of times when you're creating a model, in order to make it unique, a lot of artists will take one of the columns, they'll rotate it slightly so it's not completely straight, although they won't move them so that they're not the same distance apart, but they may rotate one of the columns so it's at an angle a bit like that, and do that on different, just individual columns as they go around the outside, not all of them, just one or two here or there. And that's just to create a bit of visual interest in the model itself, to make it look a bit more unique. Like maybe one of the columns has been knocked or something and it's just moved out of place a little. It's been angled back or angled sideways. For this type of object, probably not, because they will be cemented into place, so they're not going to be knocked about. But things like these metal posts here, this metal railing, they'd be a prime example where you'd take maybe one of these taller column pieces and maybe bend it in so it looks like it's been knocked, or just put a slight curve on a couple of these pieces through here to make it look a bit more unique and less perfect. And they'll generally just do that to make it look more natural, so it looks like it's been banged about a bit. Somebody's hit it, or again, I'm not going to do it on this model because the people that will buy this model generally, I don't think will want that imperfection. that they prefer it, I think, to be more perfect looking. But me personally, using the model, I would knock a couple of these metal posts about a bit. I'd move them in, I'd rotate them around a little, so they don't all look quite so perfect. But because I'm not making the model for me, it's going into my store. I want to make sure I don't do something that majority of people wouldn't like. So, but it helps to make the model you're creating look more natural, more unique, and real, because it's not perfect. And that's the problem a lot of people have when they create 3D models. They don't dirty them up. Nothing is perfect. Nothing comes out completely clean. Or if it does come out completely clean, it's not that way for very long, not naturally, not in nature, not in reality. So if you want to make sure your model looks real, you've got to vary the color, you've got to dirty it up. Yeah, that's exactly right. Remove one of them. It could have been knocked out, it could have rusted out. That's sort of those little touches help to add a lot more believability to your model and make it look a lot more real. But again, the number one important point is to make sure that your models don't look too clean. And this, even though this model is sitting outside, so it's going to be weathered a lot. But even interior stuff you want to add some sort of variation through the texture, not make it completely clean. I don't know how to explain that. Well, on my website, there's an interior of a dining room. It has the orange walls, I think, and the white ceiling from memory. The tabletop in that room, even though it's a varnished tabletop, if you look at it, there are some variations, like where a bit of wearing has happened through people putting glasses down or plates down. And that's just to make it a little bit more real and not so perfect. Some studios, architectural studios, when they're creating their interiors, tend to go a bit too clean, for me personally anyway. Some of them like that. Some of them, because they're working on a new development, or the client may want that. You know, sometimes the client will say, no, I want it to look pristine and perfect. Yeah, no, nothing is perfectly straight either. No, that's exactly right. Working on construction, you'd know. It's very rare to get anything completely plumb. There's always some variation. And it's important when you're modeling to include that sort of variation as well, because you can get into the habit of 3D modeling because you have a grid, you can snap to your grid, everything will be perfect. And so the temptation can be to leave it that way, and sometimes you're better off making just a few tweaks here and there so things aren't completely perfect, just to add that believability to your model, to make it look realistic, because nothing will be perfect except in 3D, in a 3D world that doesn't exist. If you're not living in a perfect 3D world, then nothing will be perfect. You'll have to add some variation and some knocks here and there. Now, I did add a bit of variation in the this wrought iron dome. Not all of these are completely straight or completely centered as they are around the outside. They'll be off just a little bit. They'll be angled just a little bit. You don't want to go extreme. You don't want to make it look like it's, somebody's come along with a hammer and bashed it, but just these little rotations, little removals, just add that bit of realism. And like I said, as I keep harping on, and making things not completely clean. That's the trick, the habit that a lot of people new to 3D will do. They'll make things too clean, and then they'll look at their render and they'll think, well, there's something about it doesn't look quite right. And it's because it's too clean. You can't make things completely clean. You've got to add a bit of dirt. Even dust will add some variation in color across the surface, Even if it is completely clean, it will get dusty, and that's going to add a little bit of color variation. So always make sure you dirty up your work a little bit. And if you want, also destroy your work a little bit. Don't make everything completely straight. That's exactly right, Galen. Little imperfections to reinforce the suspension of disbelief. Exactly right. Alright, so we've textured up our columns. All we have left to do now is that last large section at the back here. And as I said, we will export that separately and bring it into Mari and texture that up so it's much more, it's unique. It's not going to be like any of the other columns. We have to do that anyway because we can't copy and paste the UVs between these different texture sets, different UV sets, because the geometry is different. We're going to have to do probably the same thing with the banister outside of the railing here. We won't be able to copy and paste between them either. They'll have to be unique. These supports we'll be able to get away with, and I've noticed one of my supports here, actually a couple of them. There are a few things on the model that when I put it together, I did it knowing that I'd be going back and making small tweaks, whereas see how these are actually intersecting the base here. I'll have to move them out slightly, but there are a few areas in the model here that I want to make some minor adjustments on. So I know I generally do that sort of work at the end once everything's been textured up. Like these columns here, as I was saying, I want to make them larger and have them intersect these two banisters at the front. And this column here, the way it's intersecting the ground, that's not right. That'll have to be moved up. But we'll do all of that once we've got the model textured up, because it'll give us a better overall idea then of what it's going to look like once it's completed before we start exporting it. So don't sweat those little things, and we'll fix all of that up at the end. We've got our railings done. They're all unique enough that people are not going to notice that we're copying and pasting textures, because we created 3 or 4 different variations. So I think we should be good. So yeah, let's just save our file here. Yeah, and again, as I was saying, the angels, once they go here on either side, will help add just a bit more interest to this top section. I just feel as if these corners are looking a little neglected, a little forgotten. There would generally be something here. You won't really have an open area like this usually without something being there, whether it be a large urn or a statue or something. If people were building this to use it, then they wouldn't leave it generally open like that with nothing there. So I'm going to add 2 statues because, hey, it's my model and that's what I want to do. But you could easily add benches, stone benches, urns, anything like that would fit, would look good. Anyway, I think we may leave it there for today, guys. I will be back on again tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific time in the US, 4 p.m. now that you've finished daylight savings. Thank you guys for watching the stream. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you guys in the chat. It's always nice when I can chat to you in chat. It helps. It's just nice to chat to guys in chat. If you want to know when I will be live again, I always post 15 minutes to my Twitter page. Just before I go live, I always make a post 15 minutes beforehand. So keep an eye on my Twitter page if you want to know when I'm just before I go live. I will be back on, as I said, again tomorrow. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for following my channel. I appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care, guys.